This is Cynthia McKinney, and I'm calling from an Israeli prison cell block.
That was the former congressional representative from Georgia, Cynthia McKinney, calling from an Israeli prison in July of 2009, after the boat that she was traveling to Gaza on to deliver aid was interdicted by the Israeli Navy.
The Free Gaza 21, who are human rights activists trying to take medical supplies, building supplies, and mostly crayons for children. I had a suitcase full of crayons for children to Gaza. And while we were on our way to Gaza, the Israelis threatened to fire on our boat. We did not turn around. Because we didn't turn around, the Israelis hijacked us because we wanted to give crayons to the children of Gaza.
This was former Representative McKinney at JFK Airport a few days later after her release from the Israeli prison.
We spent the most harrowing night with our first encounter in international waters with the Israelis. And they threatened to fire on the boat in 5 minutes if we didn't turn around. We turned into Gazan territorial waters. That's when the several speedboats, there were 4 speedboats that came to us rather quickly, and they all jumped out and commandeered the boat, sidelined the captain.
7 months earlier, while Barack Obama was still president-elect, McKinney was part of another flotilla, and her boat was rammed by the Israeli Navy. This is from an interview she gave to CNN after that incident in December 2008.
Congresswoman McKinney, can you tell us what happened? We had our Carl Penhall saying that you were in international waters, clearly in international waters, when accosted by and confronted by these Israeli patrol boats.
Well, I wouldn't call it accosting. I would call it ramming. Let's just call it as it is. Our boat was rammed 3 times, twice in the front and 1 on the side. But let me also state for the record that what we experienced earlier today pales in comparison to what the people of Gaza are experiencing right now as we do this interview.
What McKinney was referring to was Operation Cast Lead, also known as the Gaza Massacre, which was a 3-week armed attack on Gaza by the Israeli military that began on the 27th of December 2008 and ended on the 18th of January 2009. In July of 2010, another attempt to deliver aid to the people of Gaza was intercepted by the Israeli military in international waters. This time, the Israelis executed 9 unarmed people, including 1 American. They were never held to account for that. With aid that's even more desperately needed under conditions even more dangerous, there are plans to send a flotilla of aid to Gaza next week. Attorney, author, and activist Dan Kovalik is one of the people involved in the support group as a lawyer, and we spoke with him from Istanbul via Skype on Friday.
The Freedom Flotilla, which is what it is called, consists of, I believe, 4 different ships that are going to carry about 5,500 tons of aid to Gaza, which is a very large amount of aid. To put that into perspective, I think that World Central Kitchen ship brought about 300 tons, and this is 5,500 tons. So that's a, considerable amount of aid. And of course, there will be international passengers on it from Europe, from the United States. I know Medea Benjamin's going to be on it from Code Pink, Ann Wright from Veterans for Peace, and others. And the Israelis have publicly announced that they are going to intercept that flotilla, and they said they've been training, in fact, to do just that. I
see that the UN, for example, the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, published an article on the 26th. UN experts demand safe passage for Freedom Flotilla's humanitarian mission to Gaza. So this is something that the previous missions never had, and particularly this comes after, in fact, the murder of a number of UN aid workers in Gaza over the past months.
Yes, and it also comes after the murder of 10 other flotilla passengers in 2010 on the Mavi Marmara ship. That
including an American, by the way.
Yes, very similar to this group of people who are going. Israel intercepted that ship about 70 to 75 miles off the coast of Israel, meaning that it was in international waters, meaning that that ship had free passage. There was no right that Israel had to do what they did. And they boarded the boat. There was confrontations, and ultimately 10 people died on that.
And by the way, just since you're a lawyer, let's take that one step further. Meaning, this was an act of piracy.
Yes, in fact, it has been described as such. But of course, Israel was never sanctioned at all for doing that. Now this aid flotilla is in a much better situation because you now have the International Court of Justice, Security Council of the UN, and the UN General Assembly, who've all said that humanitarian aid must be guaranteed for Gaza, and has ordered Israel to guarantee that. So what is being done by this flotilla is completely in line with, again, the major international bodies, not just recommendations, but really orders. And frankly, again, I mean, even it's in line with what at least Biden claims he wants to do. He at least claims he wants to get more aid to Gaza. He said he's going to build a port to do that. So this seems completely in line with the international community's wishes. It's certainly in line with international law, which requires civilians to be taken care of, even in times of war. The Geneva Conventions provide for that, provide they must be, guaranteed access to water, food, medicine, and that's the type of things that are going to be delivered there. So the flotilla has international law on its side, has the support of most of the international community, and we'll just see what happens, what Israel decides to do.
With reference to recent orders from the ICJ, from the International Court of Justice, or the World Court as it's referred to, Israel was directed to enable the delivery of aid, and the response from the United States and others was to defund the primary organizations providing it. So that's the context for this.
Yes, exactly. UNRWA. And again, as you mentioned, Israel's been killing aid workers. It has been blocking aid both by sea and by land. It has been firing upon Palestinians trying to get aid that has been brought in. So they've done all they can to prevent the people of Gaza from getting the life-sustaining items they need. And again, that's a war crime. That is a violation of, amongst other things, the Geneva Conventions. It's a violation of the ICJ decision. It's a violation of recent Security Council and UN General Assembly resolutions. And that was why the flotilla was, why they decided to do this flotilla, to try to get this needed aid to them, to open up a humanitarian corridor, to break the siege on Gaza. And that's exactly why Israel wants to prevent them from arriving there.
Is there any kind of protective legal mechanism that could be pursued, some sort of injunction or something that would, in essence, chill Israel from taking military action against these people or hurting them or intercepting this in any way, but where, in essence, say, a violation of international law by Israel would force a defunding by the U.S., something that the U.S. court would have jurisdiction over?
Well, certainly the U.S. could threaten that. Also, under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which is most of its customary international law now, under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, Israel's required, before they intercept that boat and board that boat, to actually negotiate with the states under which those ships are flying. frankly, what needs to be done is for this flotilla to have a military, a naval escort into Gaza, but that's sadly not going to happen. Sadly, the flotilla is largely going to be on its own in the seas, aside from the legal support it has, the political support it has, the popular support it has. So hopefully that will be enough.
We'll see what's in place in the aftermath, depending on how this goes, including whether there will be some sort of mechanism on the people's side to address any wrongdoing by Israel in this case. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.